For a homeland without a goal, the failed ones, the demonstration seems to be headless. I'm always interested. People who write in the comments on my videos, well, the ones about the investigation, the actions of the prosecutor's office, Congress, who write things like, no one will go to jail anyway, or why haven't they locked up all the lying press yet? Or they just talk and that's it and nothing will ever happen. Are they bots or do they really care and just don't understand what the legal system and the rule of law mean? If you live in the era of war communism, then everyone who was suspected or denounced gets arrested. Then there are 10, 15 minutes or even less for a conversation with the so-called judges, the troika, and in 99% of cases the sentence is torture or execution. Is that what you want? Do you want revolutionary troikas? Do you want this to continue? Or do you want any government? Could arrest, throw in prison, or shoot anyone who, in their opinions, stands in the way of their goals and objectives. Don't talk to me about the truth. Here you go. Both sides always think they're on the side of truth and that the other side is looking for it in hell. If you cancel the obstacles built into the Constitution, actually by incredibly smart and educated people, if removed, it would be easy and simple to punish those whom the authorities consider guilty of something. But I want to warn you, today you have the power, but tomorrow they might have it. The Democrats, for example, abolished the rule requiring 60% of votes to confirm judges in the Senate and pushed their own people into the federal appellate courts. And then Trump came. And since they had already abolished it, he was able to push 3 conservatives into the Supreme Court. If the Democrats hadn't abolished that rule, the court wouldn't be so conservative. But tomorrow, the Democrats will come back again. If it's easier for us to govern by forgetting about the Constitution, then it will be easier for them to govern by forgetting about the Constitution. They will gladly forget about it. Continuation, as it will make governing easier. And our entire republic, built on checks and balances, is difficult to govern. This was designed on purpose. It's not a mistake. So we will become just like the European dictatorial regimes. By the way, when I say dictatorial, I don't just mean Russia and Belarus. I'm also talking about France, Germany, Belgium, and England. Actually, about almost all the others as well. Why am I not mentioning them? Why? I'm saying almost because I don't know for sure. Maybe there's a country among them that doesn't have what I'm talking about. You didn't know they were dictatorships. Look. They even call themselves a dictatorship of the majority. Well, they disguise it with another word like democracy, yes. A word that's unclear to the masses. That's why they always use, so to speak, the authorities, the leadership. They try to use words that are unclear to the masses. And it's like, think what you want, right? But it's the same thing. So the majority decided that you have to give up your house, for example, right? You'll give it up, like Marinki. Or they'll kill you, right? How did you not know? They even have this in America. It's called public domain. Is your house included? Most people will want to demolish it, and in its place they'll build a school, a road, a shopping center, Sarlieu. They have the official right by law. The law of Darwin gives it to them. Karl Marx. To evict you, as they say, from your home to the street, paying you whatever they think is appropriate. That's democracy, or rather dictatorship. The majority. You can tell them 100 times that your great-grandmother or your great-grandfather, but you'll most likely be telling this to your cellmates. This exists in the United States too, as I've already said. But at least we have some laws that restrain dictatorship. In Europe, it either never existed or hasn't for a long time. They've lived by Marx or Mussolini for years. Well, actually, it's Marx who talked about both. I call it Marx 1 and Marx 2. It doesn't matter to your understanding if it's Marx or Mussolini. Do you know the difference? I hope so. They claim to be anti-communist and anti-fascist, yet most Western leaders are actually communists or fascists. Well, like what's mine is mine and what's yours is also mine. Whenever I want and as much as I want, I'll take it. And if you resist, you'll get hit on the head with a stick or a rock. And if I don't scream with happiness because of it, then you're the enemy. And with an enemy, you treat them like an enemy. Editor, and in war, it's like in war. Al-Kagersh. Subtitle editors, Alexandrova, A. Semkin. Proofreader, A. Yegorova. Like in war. On Saturday, a demonstration took place across America under the slogan, "We don't need kings, czars, monarchs, or anything like that." Yes, 90% of those present had no idea what that meant. Trump.
Son of a bitch. And why is that? I don't know. We just don't like him. That's what they say here. Is there any specific reason why you don't like him? I have no idea. I'm just repeating what everyone else says. That's
a typical representative of the dissenters, but what he or they disagree with, they don't know. I'm going to show you 5 people who didn't go to the demonstration for an interesting reason. They were arrested, but not for rioting, arson, or assaults. They didn't make it in time. They were arrested for election fraud, which the press told us didn't happen at all. Here is A. Well, there is none of that, no fraud. That's just made up by Trump and the Republicans.
Before that, she was arrested, but not for something illegal. She was arrested for voter fraud. Behind me is Judge Rochelle Lozana Camacho, arrested in Texas for voter fraud. Let's sort this out. Looks like orange will be their new favorite color for a while. But here's the catch. These people aren't just citizens. They were elected officials.
Gentlemen, these people worked in the management system, in the voting organization system. They were protected by a judge. That's great. That's right, Verrier. That's great.
Now let's move on to the story. 6 officials from Texas were charged with voter fraud, including a Democratic judge, a city council member, and a school board member. Now let's look at their charges. Judge Rochelle Lozana Camacho is charged with 3 counts of ballot harvesting. Ramira Trevino is charged with 1 count of ballot harvesting. Adrian Ramirez is charged with 3 counts of ballot harvesting. And Carlos Segura is charged with 1 count of tampering with or falsifying physical evidence. But
there was no forgery. Then why are they in orange jumpsuits? Subtitles? Maybe it's Trump getting back at them for their honesty and integrity. Trump hates honest people. All of them. As soon as you're honest, Trump immediately hates you. He's a friend of Putin, Kim Tamsen, Kim Jong-il, Agent Krasnov, and a very bad businessman. He allowed his name to be put on buildings all over the world for just $5 million. But he could have charged 7 or even 8. What a fool Judge Michelle Zana Camacho is, who was just imprisoned and is being tried for forgery and falsification. She would never let her name be put on buildings in Istanbul, Baku, or Panama City for just $5 million. Never, right? Okay. The demonstration was called No to Kings, Yes to Czars. But the leadership of the Demo Party doesn't want, it's not that they don't want kings in general, it's that they don't want this particular king. They're ready to swear allegiance just like in the Middle Ages, but they just want their own monarch. Editor. One is standing. But he later explained that if he had even knelt on one knee, he wouldn't have been able to get up. He's chubby. Yes, just to be clear, they weren't kneeling for 8 seconds like I showed you here. They were kneeling for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Eight minutes and 46 seconds, elderly people on their knees. And these very people are the ones who forbid us from picking our noses. And so no to kings.
There is no king. There is no king in the United States of America. We are rising up now in protest. No kings here in Carlton, Texas. And it's almost exclusively elderly white people. Quite an interesting demographic. As many of you know, today, October 18th, is No King's Day in America. Which, of course, means that a bunch of liberals are out on the streets making complete fools of themselves trying to protest against Donald Trump. And then magically, at many of the No Kings protests today, what do we see? Open support and defense of Antifa, also known as militant, violent communism, which, as I've said, is exactly what the Democratic Party stands for. We've seen a lot of different signs calling for or supporting political violence. Even mainstream Democratic politicians like Brandon Johnson are clearly inciting these people and know exactly what they're doing. But at the same time, if you want to think about Soros-type networks, then what the funny thing is that the so-called spontaneous normal protests, especially in New York, seem to magically disappear today. As soon as the clock struck 1 to 2 in the afternoon, which is also very strange behavior for something that isn't organized or paid for. And then across the country, following the trend you've seen repeatedly, except in the super large blue cities. The protests are pathetic and mostly older people. Because honestly, those are the only people communist democracy has left to even lead their revolution. All right.
I drove past a demonstration in Los Angeles yesterday. The average age is clearly over 70. That's the average age. That's all. All right, what else was interesting? White people. I didn't see any black people or Latinos, though sometimes Latinos appear white. It feels like they were recruited and brought to the project. A protest by residents of nursing homes, for whom, let's say, $100 a sandwich and a can of Coca-Cola or a beer to choose from. And yes, the main thing for them is the gathering, of course, a break from their boring everyday life. It's a wonderful, exciting event. They were given banners, and when you hand them in so you don't throw them away on the way, they give you another 20 and maybe even a beer. I'm not sure exactly. So does it really matter what you carry? You're carrying something that you'll later exchange for $20, right?
In today's video, we're talking about the No to Kings protests that have erupted across the country. Two things are shocking. First, the people participating in this protest, and second, the unknown reasons why they are taking part in these protests, which I think you'll find amusing. Hey, are you all ready to defend this democracy? Are you ready to fight fascism?
Yes.
Ready to end authoritarianism for good, yes?
Now let the world hear you. No Kings. Hey, Donald J., how many children did you start?
Today?
Hey, Donald J., how many kids did you start today? Hey, okay, that's enough. Are you ready? Answer this. Are you ready to sit back and let Trump destroy our freedoms? No, I can't hear you, Washington. They need to hear you in the White House. Are you ready to let Trump destroy our freedoms? Are you ready to sit back and kneel before fascists and white supremacists?
Let's figure it out. These are the people who are shouting, not the counter-protesters who came to work, but the ones shouting, into megaphones or microphones or something like that. Also, not those old folks, the ones there for $100 sandwiches. What do they want? Stop the white movement, which is considered the smartest race. Yeah, but the whole crowd is made up of white people. They drive, it will happen. Well, 90% of them. I haven't seen anyone else at all, but I imagine sometimes there were some black people, for example. Maybe some Latino or black, but almost everyone is retired and white. Who are they planning to stop? Soros himself pushed in 50 million. They wrote about it again. I didn't check or count. Yes, in the organizations that were preparing this very protest across the country, I think half or maybe even 3/4 was simply stolen. So against, I see, so they're against. Well, Trump is like a king there, right? But what for? Demonstrations are usually both for and against something, right? So we're against this, but we want that, right? They're for the dictatorship of the majority. So 10 people get together to decide how much to take away from the one who has money, and they decide, let's put it to a vote. Should we take half, 3/4, or everything from him? That's the majority's dictatorship. In other words, they are afraid of losing the right to decide how much money to take away from the one who has more than they do. Thank you.
There are two very serious logical mistakes in what they are doing.
First of all, the day without kings in America is July 4th. And President Trump just gave us the best July 4th celebration in history. Do you remember how much there was there? And just imagine what the July 4th celebration will be like that he's planning for the 250th anniversary of our great country. President Trump said he is not a king. And secondly, so I guess these guys don't consider July 4th a day without kings. Like, that's one. And two, they go out to protest and we allow it. After all, that's what America is about. And that proves there's no king, right? And that's why what they're doing is meaningless. The point is, everything the Democrats are doing right now is meaningless. The fact that they're shutting down the government after Republicans prevented it from shutting down 13 times under Joe Biden because they understood their constitutional duty. The Senate should be a restraining force in America. But instead we have these people who think that AOSI and the communists from New York should be the face of the party. And they're ready to shut down the government and take away everyone's paychecks for no reason at all. It's completely illogical if you think about what they're saying.
I still can't understand why the Democrats sent all these people out into the streets, paid huge amounts. Well, for each person it's not much, like $100 or so. Even if you just count the sandwiches, Coca-Cola, beer, it's a huge amount of money, yeah, in total. So what? Maybe there's something KJSK that we don't understand. Maybe there's some plan behind this. Maybe it's just the beginning of something or the continuation of something. Yeah. In the United States, there really are no kings, and that's a celebration. Really, it's the 4th of July, the day when America said no to British and other monarchs. It's not July right now. Maybe the organizers got high and got confused. That's possible too. By the way, a couple of days ago, they explained to Soros that if there is violence, deaths, arson, or beatings at these demonstrations he paid for, then he will be held accountable. Aside from a few troublemakers, everything was quiet. When they need to throw stones, they hire younger people. In this case, they hired older people. They could have set something on fire, but probably couldn't throw it. Now I'll show you a protest where the people were a bit younger, but almost all of them were working for the organizers. And by the way, explain to me if you understand what they came out for or against.
We will flood Washington. We will flood Washington. November 5th, November 5th. We will flood Washington. We will flood Washington. All right. We need to get the information to everyone who is here today. We have a bunch of cards that we want you to have. We have 30,000 cards, but we need you to take a stack and hand them out to everyone.
For those who haven't given up, what's going on?
We
Want to say, so take a stack of cards. Come in.
If I understood correctly, they want to hand out 90,000 cards so people understand why they were hired to protest. By the way, I thought that old folks, well, people my age, went out of boredom, but they proved to me that no, it's for the money. Of course, some go out of boredom too. And by the way, Laura Trump, the daughter-in-law of Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, you see, they have to hand them out. And I'll correct myself, they're propaganda cards, because people come to these protests and don't even know what they're protesting against. I just talked to my producer. I said, so how are you? Well, what did you do this morning? Hey, dear guys, do you want to walk down the street, see what this protest is about? Just hang out. Well, that's the kind of thing people do when they actually have their own lives, or like me, I don't think so, okay? I have more important things to do, like just sitting on the couch and being lazy for once, okay? With my son and wife, or watching Netflix, or going for a swim. I mean, there are plenty of better things to do than what they're doing today. And what's interesting is that right now, half the country is watching college football, and the other half is protesting in the streets about things they don't even understand. They don't even know what they're protesting against. They don't even know the words they're protesting against because they don't understand their meaning. Look at what Lara Trump said about this morning.
Yes, Charlie, it's absurd. Everyone sees that. No one should be surprised that the same group of people who don't understand the meaning of the word fascism and can't define what a woman is also don't understand what a king is. President Donald Trump was elected by a huge margin in the 2024 election. He was. These were democratic, free, and fair elections. And for the first time in 20 years, he won the popular vote as a Republican. Maybe those people should get a dictionary and check what king actually means. I think a lot of these people just don't know what to do with themselves. Because President Trump keeps all his promises. He has secured our border. Right now, we have the most secure border in American history. He is lowering inflation, making life here more affordable, and bringing peace around the world. Obviously, it's absolutely clear that they can't stand it, and so I guess their response is to take to the streets and protest against it.
It seems that the organizers of the rally don't like that Trump is successfully improving the lives of the American people, so therefore their own interests against the interests of the country. Well, it's kind of clear, but I really don't want the people who run your life to not only think that way, but also act on it. I wonder how the leadership of the Democratic Party is selling this protest. Well, so to speak, how they explain it.
They are acting as citizens in defense of our Constitution. They are standing up for the First Amendment and freedom of speech, saying that you can't just make comedy illegal. They oppose AIS mask agents removing children from their families. But you know what upsets me? I have never looked down on ordinary Americans who voted for Donald Trump. I said that we should treat our fellow citizens with respect.
Wait a second. That's not at all what the organizers are shouting at rallies. That's noble, but it's like asking the time and being told the moon shines with reflected light. Yes, that's right, absolutely right. The moon shines with reflected light, but you still didn't find out what time it is. But
where is the energy in the Democratic Party? You see energy directed at protecting the illegal population. You see it every day, energy around criminals, violent criminals. Democratic officials across the country have made a lot of effort to release serious criminals onto the streets. Where is the lie in the words of Caroline Leavitt? This is the place where the energy is on the left. Violent, illegal immigrants, violent criminals, this is the energy. That's what you see.
Energy supports protecting rights, which is why there are fewer citizens. Whose? Citizens, Americans? What about illegal ones?
Does Immigration and Customs Enforcement detain aliens?
Democrats said we misunderstood immigration and need to fix it. Maybe, possibly in Congress, but we know that's not going to happen because they're not even working right now. But people are protesting against Americans being handcuffed, detained, and not having their rights protected. Yes, I'm saying that's not true. That's not what the Democratic Party is saying. Let all the illegals or criminals walk free. That's not what the Democratic Party is saying.
Those are yours. No?
They're not like that. I mean, you have prosecutors
and judges all over the country who kept releasing dangerous criminals onto the streets one after another. And what do then? They commit new violent crimes in city after city among the people.
Is a perfect explanation of what the Dem Party is doing. And the Democrats do it, and then say, we never did that, never. And they think we'll believe it. But apparently there are millions of fools who believe the television instead of their 5 or 6 senses. One of them, let's say, is hearing, another is sight, and the third is the mind. And finally, of course, the cherry on top, also known as a plum, also known as a tomato, since a tomato is also a berry, and also a peach. There were so few people. Well, except a few cities. What? The Democrats showed fabricated footage on television.
So today, the long-awaited No to Kings protest is taking place. The Democrats and the media have been promoting and hyping up this event all week. And now finally the day has come, and it's a complete humiliation. The crowds turned out to be smaller than expected, and everything around just feels kind of sluggish. And this is footage from the scene by National Broadcasting Company News. So these are materials from mainstream media, and you understand that they will choose the best angle, the best shots to show their viewers. See for yourself. Did you notice what I did? Remember, they posted this on TikTok. I don't know about you, but to me this looks like a gathering of elderly white retired people. I have nothing against the elderly. I've said many times on this channel that I deeply respect the older generation and believe we should take care of them and support them. But the only reason I'm bringing this up is because, you know, the left is always saying that the right is racist, that Donald Trump is racist, and they claim that they have the support of young voters and minorities and so on. They constantly play the identity card. But if you look at the main participants in today's rallies, and not just there, I'll give you more examples, you'll see exactly the same thing. What is even going on here? Did you empty out the nursing homes or something? Is this some kind of hippie gathering from the 60s? What is even happening here? Look, Florida.
With kids, and they really can do something very important with these young guys who need help and support in their lives.
On MSNBC, it seemed like there were a lot more people than cable news network was showing. Let's figure this out.
Today, there are clearly more of us than those who want autocracy or dictatorship. So the message is pretty clear. We, the people, own this country, and we will respect the rule of law. We will stand up for and protect our democracy. What we've seen in Chicago over the past few months, or excuse me, weeks during the Trump administration's offensive, is that the rule of law is holding strong. Last week was really tough.
See, it's cable news network again. Just look at the primary colors here. Obviously, the ground is green. Breaking news, I know, but it seems like most people in the crowd are dressed in black, right? Dark colors dominate here, and you can really see the ground beneath them. Just so you know, it's a big crowd, but not huge. Nothing mind-blowing, nothing that would make you say, wow, history is being made right before our eyes, right? I mean, President Trump regularly drew much larger crowds at his rallies, and that was just standard fare. Compare that to what, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the media and the Democrats have been hyping up this party all week. This march against the Kings, it was supposed to be the climax, and that's all you were able to gather. So I'll just fast forward here again. The time on cable news network is 12:10 post-meridium. Let's take a look. Again, the same thing happened in Boston. Let's see how it looked on MSNBC around the same time.
Take a look at this. Millions of people across the country are marching as we protest President Trump's policies. This is Boston. Take a look at this. We'll keep covering these rallies all day on MSNBC.
Whoa.
Are you okay? I'll come up now.
Now, I know that the size of a crowd can change quite a lot in just about 20 minutes. I don't think it can change that quickly. Especially when people had to, as I understand it, go through an entry area where they were checked by security. And apparently the entire perimeter wasn't blocked off because it seemed like other people could enter from the park side. The crowd appears larger, and everyone seems to be wearing white. And I really believe that this was done intentionally. Deception. I'm not saying this is artificial intelligence or that a computer changed the crowd. But if you know anything about photography, look, I'm not a photo expert. I'm usually behind the camera as an actor. But I know a thing or two about exposure, and when I see that the exposure is lower, like for example in this cable news network clip with reduced exposure, that means people will look darker, but it also means there will be more contrast with the ground because of it. Right? And if people are wearing dark clothes, it really emphasizes the space between them. So in this cable news network segment, you'll notice that people aren't standing shoulder to shoulder. There's quite a lot of open space there. In some places, you can see large patches of grass between the protesters. Compare this to MSNBC, where everyone is dressed in white, and I think this was done intentionally. So most likely they had higher exposure, and that means the camera lets in more light, and when it lets in more light, the colors change a bit, and the reflections from people's clothes also change. As a result, a kind of optical illusion occurs, because when people are dressed in white, they don't stand out and don't look different from the ground like they would if they were in black. So it becomes harder to tell where the ground is. But if you look closely, you can still see gaps and openings where the grass is visible. And so part of me can't help but wonder if this was done intentionally by MSNBC. Like, let's increase the exposure. Maybe they used a lens with a longer focal length to, compress the image so there wouldn't be such a contrast. And then the crowd looks bigger than it actually is.
I think that's really funny. Reality doesn't matter. What matters is the feeling you get from reality. So the feeling from the protest march No Czar is very similar to No Czar in your head, because 50 million from Soros plus a little bit here, a little bit there. It seems with a loud crack, with a crack and the loud sound of air escaping from one of the openings of the human body. But of course, they'll tell us that never in America has there been so much of what? So much money spent on organizing an absolutely pointless event. It's a Guinness record. Which I think shows the complete disaster of Trump's opponents, who are forced to take idiotic positions simply because they are anti-Trump. And as a result, they end up lacking common sense. Trump wants, for example, yes, that's what Trump wants. But they need to do the opposite. For example, to increase the flow of illegals, increase crime, lower the standard of living for Americans, and keep the wars going. If you always have to take a stance, we don't agree with him, and they don't agree with anything. They don't say, we like this, but we don't like that, let's move on. They say everything is terrible. It's completely idiotic, by the way. But if you take that approach against Trump, then you have to be for crime, since he's against it, right? You have to be for lawlessness, since he's for the law, for making Americans' lives worse and for wars. Well, as Goebbels said, the more often you repeat a lie, the more people start to believe it's true. I think most Americans can tell lies from facts. But of course, not everyone. And of course, not those who want the government to steal money from more successful citizens, the wealthy, the successful. I don't know. And give part of it to those who, either because of circumstances, character, or laziness, can't earn as much as others, but they want to. They feel envious and hurt. And then they shout, Trump is a czar, he's against democracy. That's what happened. He's against democracy, but we want democracy. We want a share of the stolen money, but he's for democracy. He doesn't want to give it to us. That's what happened. Stay tuned. What a nasty guy. Or maybe something else like that. Maybe not nasty, but a terrible fascist. That's all. Goodbye.